So I'm going to begin by saying don't do what I just did with the video, which is make this group project more difficult than it has to be. And we're going to talk a little bit about that in this video. Last week was a really important week, especially for understanding the terms and concepts that are going to come as we engage the remainder of the term. But specifically, last week introduced you to two things that are really important for your group project. One is, and you'll notice that the entire book is kind of organized around this idea of the three paradigms in communication research and the ways that researchers engage research questions and what they study, etc., and engage the study of intercultural communication from these different paradigms. Those paradigms are important. They determine the questions that get asked, the things that get looked at, the types of communication that get studied in relation to intercultural contexts, etc. But one thing I really want you to focus on from last week is Martin and Nakayama's outlining of the dialectical perspective. As you move into the group project, the group project's goal is to take a current group conflict, and we're going to talk a little bit more about that here in a second. Take a group conflict, explain the various ways that this conflict is being communicated about on either side of that conflict, and then use those tensions, those 6 dialectics that Martin and Nakayama outline as a way of engaging this conflict to better understand how we might come to a resolution or to better understand how we might actually have a more nuanced understanding of the conflict in general. You may not end up using all 6 dialectics in your final group project paper, but I think it's important as you're doing the research on the conflict that you've chosen or your group is about to choose that you think about which of these dialectics is kind of operating here and how can I use this particular dialectic as a means of exploring this conflict in a much more nuanced way. So let's talk about that group project. A couple of things. I know that there have been several group members that have been inactive in their group. This is not only frustrating for me as an instructor, but it's doubly frustrating for those folks who are actually in a group with you. It is so imperative that you contact your group members. If you do not contact your group members, I think this camera is doing something crazy. If you do not contact your group members, I'm simply going to drop you from the group because we just don't have the time in a 5-week course for people to be kind of playing around and messing around and not contacting their group when there's a lot of work that has to be done and things start to really speed up in terms of assignments as we move from this week forward. So I ask of all of you, please choose one member of your group, have that group member email me a list of all group members who have actively communicated with the group and are participating, and 2, a list of names of those persons who have not been actively participating. From there, and I ask that you do this by no later than tomorrow night at midnight, Wednesday. Yes, Wednesday. Today's Tuesday. Whew, this Labor Day has me all messed up. What I'm going to do is I'm going to email all inactive group members. If I don't hear from them within 24 hours, they're going to be dropped from the group. And if that is the case, then all participating group members just go ahead and get started doing things, making decisions about who's going to do what, who's going to take which aspect of the project, etc., without necessarily worrying about the folks who aren't engaging the group. So I know that it can be really frustrating when you have folks that are supposed to be in a group and they're not participating, but try to release some of that frustration by simply letting those people go. If they're not going to participate, they're not going to participate. There's nothing you can do about that. They make their own decisions, and subsequently their grade will be impacted, not yours. So keep that in mind. So that's by Wednesday evening. I ask that one group member send me a list of the names of all those group members who are actively participating, and then a list of names of all group members who have yet to contact the group, who have seemingly dropped off the face of the earth and don't seem to be wanting to participate in this course or this course project. Okay, now, ceiling fan making crackling noises. I also turned off my AC so that it wouldn't bother this video, and I'm already experiencing Arizona without AC. It's not good. I may have to turn that back on. Okay, the group project. You have an assignment as a group due this Sunday at midnight. Now, good thing is you only have the Module 3 quiz due. You do not have a discussion board for this Sunday, and that's to give you and your group members time to work on this project. As it relates to the group project, I encourage you to consult page 72 of the textbook. That is where Martin and Nakayama outline the various dialectical approaches. That will be an important bit of content as you move forward in the project. I also encourage you to engage Chapter 4. Chapter 4 talks about the ways that various people have competing histories around particular issues, and those will be things that you will be ultimately engaging in your project. It also engages aspects of identity, and that's what we're talking about this week in Module 3. So this week's module will also be important. And then you can kind of skip forward to Chapter 11 of the textbook. That specifically has a section on intercultural conflict. So you need to, as a group, choose a conflict, and this can be, we often have a tendency to think of conflicts in terms of those between nation states. So right now we might have, we might examine the conflict between the United States and Canada as it relates to the North American Free Trade Agreement. Or we might look at the conflict between the United States and the EU as it relates to other trade disputes, or the United States and China as it relates to various trade disputes. We're in a lot of disputes right now. So there's a lot of conflict to examine from the perspective of a nation state, and a lot of conflicts to examine if you were ultimately wanting to look at the U.S. as one party in the conflict. But you can also think of this group project a little bit differently. We have cultural groups right here within the United States that would be defined by Martin and Nakayama as distinct intercultural groups or co-cultural groups that may be in conflict with one another. Today, we have a conflict that is occurring on this in the House, in the Senate, in the United States Senate, over the confirmation of Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh. This is a conflict that is between two political parties, the Democrats and the Republicans. This is also a conflict that bleeds out into other areas. It's a conflict between people who are pro-choice and people who are pro-life, as Kavanaugh could potentially overturn Roe v. Wade. So these are kind of conflicts that happen within a nation state as opposed to those between nation states. Ultimately, it's up to you, and the draft paper that's due on Sunday is not your full paper, though it should outline what you project to be the various sections of that full paper. And this is why I want you to consult those dialectics to see, as you and your group are researching the various positions that either side of the conflict have, start thinking about what dialectics might you then use as sections of your final paper, that you will then use to apply that dialectic, that tension to this particular conflict. So what the draft paper does ask you to do is to construct your entire introduction. And that means kind of outlining the conflict. Who are the key players? What are the key issues that are being, disputed in this conflict? And then you might start to preview what are the key dialectical tensions that are kind of, at work in this conflict. So what are those tensions, and how might we use tools of intercultural communication in order to manage those tensions within this conflict? Then it asks you to kind of detail out in terms of section headers, including the section that says conclusion. It's not expected that you are going to have content in each of those sections, though if you all are kind of working on something and you just have ideas that you want to toss out underneath those sections, please by all means do so. This draft paper is an opportunity for me to give you feedback, your group feedback, on this paper before you all turn it in for a grade. As it relates to that, yes, you all will be earning the same grade on the group project, but I want you to keep in mind that an aspect of this project is reporting on all of your group members' contributions, and I want you to know that I take those things very seriously, and I ask that you be honest and forthright in your feedback at the end of the term when you kind of engage what group members did what, and know that could have a potential impact on people's grades. I want to make sure that people are actively participating and working together. Part of intercultural communication is to work together with folks we might not otherwise work with. That's part of the reason why this course employs a group project. I know that can be frustrating, but taking it back to the beginning of this video, don't make a mountain out of a molehill. Try to focus on what you can get done, how you can best support your group, One of the things that you all might do is determine who is the group leader. I saw a really fantastic discussion between one of the groups already where someone said, here's what I think I'm good at. I'm the first person to reach out, but I don't see myself as being, the most effective group leader. Does someone want to step up into that position? Those are really great conversations to have so that you can kind of determine what's everybody going to do. If you go to your modules page and you scroll down, you will see the link for all of the assignments for the group project, including the assignment guidelines and overview. Go through that, and I encourage you to kind of just say, okay, we need to include this. This person's going to do the research there. This person's going to do the research there. So I'm thinking specifically about, for the introduction and the draft paper that's due on Sunday, what you need to do is outline the various kind of sides of the conflict. And that means how are these individual sides narrating what this conflict is about? So, how one side narrates the conflict is likely very different than how the other side is narrating the conflict. So let's take the confirmation of potential Supreme Court Justice Brett Kavanaugh. The Republicans are framing this as he is an immensely qualified individual. The Democrats are just trying to, stall this until after the midterm elections. This is a political stunt. We should be, confirming this man. He has all of the qualifications. We've released more documents on him than any other Supreme Court justice in history. The Democrats are just crying foul. The Democrats are saying, yes, you've released more documents on him than anybody in any Supreme Court justice nominee in history. However, there are more documents associated with him than any other Supreme Court justice nominee. You've only given us 22% of that. This is a way of you ultimately trying to push someone through before the election without giving the Democrats and the American people the opportunity to fully understand who this person is that we are about to appoint to a lifetime appointment to the court. So those are two very different ways of narrating it. So I would think about, okay, some group members should look at, as a group, identify the sides and then have group members do research on how each of the sides is communicating. How are they narrating this conflict so that then you can start to determine, okay, what are the dialectical tensions that are present here? And how can we then maybe, as we move past the draft paper, start applying those dialectical tensions to this conflict to get a more effective understanding of it? I hope that is helpful. I am here for you if you need to email me, if you have questions. Again, I really ask that one group member send me an email by no later than tomorrow night, Wednesday at midnight, with a list of all participating members and their names and a list of all inactive members and their names so that I can send out a, excuse my language, but shit or get off the pot email. I'm very serious about group members being active and participating with one another. Nothing makes me more upset than when I see two people in a group doing all of the work. So know that if you are not active in your group, that's going to affect you. It's not going to affect the group members who are actively participating. While the assignment outlines that everyone receives the same grade, it's very easy for me to go back through Canvas and see who has been and who has not been participating. There's also the portion of the assignment that allows group members to discuss who has been participating. I take that stuff very seriously, so all group members need to start actively participating. If you have questions about the group project, please feel free to email me, brandon.furter@asu.edu. You can also kind of communicate with me through Canvas. It might be easier to just send me an email because Canvas. I'm not sure how I feel about it yet. I don't want to diss it just yet because I feel like the only reason I dislike it is because I'm so used to Blackboard and I need to just let it go. So I'm trying to let that one go. We'll see how it goes. Anyway, please feel free to email me. Let's get kind of started on this group project. Know that you don't have a discussion board that's due this week so that you can work on that group project instead of working on the discussion. You do still have the quiz for the module, so make sure that you complete that. I am going to start grading discussion posts today. Jeremy and I will do that grading. I graded the first part of the alphabet last time and Jeremy graded the second half. We're going to switch that this time so that those of you in the second half of the alphabet can get my feedback and those in the top half can get his. And then just know that all group-related project grading, I will be doing that myself. So any questions about those things, feel free to email me, or if you have questions about a grade you received from Jeremy, be sure to email him. Otherwise, I look forward to reading your discussion post today.